Trusting God is not always easy, especially when things get tough. When life throws us curveballs, it's natural to feel afraid or insecure. However, we must remember that God has a plan for each of us and will never lead us astray. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight. From Proverbs 3:5. Trusting God in the bad times. The times when we most doubt God's guidance are the very times when we most need to be leaning on Him. While it can be easy to trust God during our best times, it is during the bad times that we truly find out what we're made of. If we're truly trusting God, then He will help us through the bad times and bring us through to the other side. When we're going through bad times, we must remember that God's love for us is unchanging. Even when we make mistakes or don't know what to do next, we can trust that God has our back. We have to remember that we can't control everything in life, and when things go wrong, it's easy to think that we're in the wrong place or doing the wrong thing. However, we must remember that God has a plan for each of us, even when we can't see it. Having confidence in God. When we're going through a tough time, it can be easy to forget that God is with us and that He loves us. However, nothing is more important than remembering that God is with us during our bad times. When we feel like all is lost, we must remember that God has not left us and that He is still with us. He will walk each step of the way with us and will never leave us. He is always faithful and true, and He will never let us down. When we're going through a hard time, we must remember that God is on our side and will make our way straight. Being committed to God. Sometimes, we might start to question our commitment to God and what we stand for. When this happens, we must remember that God is never going to leave us, and we will always have His love and protection. We must also remember that God is always with us and that He is always listening to our prayers. We can talk to Him about anything, and He will always be there for us. God is always faithful and true, and He will never leave us or forsake us. When we start to question our commitment to God, we must remember that He has never left us and that He always loves us. Fear in knowing God's plan. It can be scary to know that God has a plan for each one of us. He has a plan for everything in our lives, including the bad things that happen. However, we must remember that God's plan is always good, and He only lets bad things happen to us when they're what is best for us. When we're going through a bad time, it can be easy to start to doubt God's plan. However, we must remember that God's plan is always perfect, and we must trust in His guidance. In conclusion, Proverbs 3:5 tells us to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight. Trusting God isn't always easy, but it is possible. We can start by remembering that God is with us, even when it feels like He isn't. We can remember that God loves us and that He has our best interest at heart. Even when things seem like they're falling apart and we feel like we're completely alone, we can know that God is there for us and will never leave us.